said it was ridiculous. Radio and TV promotes the product. It took baseball a long time to realize that. It took some sports, like Bill works in hockey, years to realize it helps in all sports, TV exposure. But Mr. Veeck Sr., he didn't invent ladies' days. He resumed it. The Cubs had done something like that, and it lapsed, and then Veeck Sr. brought it back and went full bore with it. He advocated radio broadcasts. He wanted lights at Wrigley Field long before the Cubs purchased lights in the mid-40s and then ended up not using them, gave them to the war effort, early 40s I should say. But he wanted lights in the 30s, before Cincinnati became the first team to do that. Bill Veeck Sr. was an advocate of integration in baseball. He wanted to break the color barrier 15 or 20 years before Jackie Robinson came along. You'd be surprised that I have to do it again. Paul's not paying me a dime, I'm telling you. Buy his book and read it. It's all in there. The color barrier of baseball was openly discussed and reported in the media. There were meetings about it. Owners talked on the record about it, claiming there was no rule against it, which was silly. It was untrue. There was such an unwritten rule. But it was out in the open in the 30s, a lot. And in the mid to late 20s, you know better than I the specifics, but if you get my drift here, long before Jackie and Veeck Sr. advocated it. So with that as a backdrop, that short list of his many innovations and ideas that I just laid out, Paul, could you please talk about Veeck Sr., his impact on the Cubs, on baseball, and on his son?
I'd love to. One of the great interesting things I've dealt with in the book and I uncovered is there's increasing evidence which is here in this building, that the 1918 World Series was fixed. That was the one that was the Cubs versus the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox then having Babe Ruth. There is evidence in those papers that were recently donated to the museum or bought from this very building, in which the members of the Black Sox are actually saying that they got the idea for fixing the 1919 World Series from members of the Cubs' 1918 team. If you look at the columns that Bill William Veeck wrote as Bill Bailey, there is one game in that World Series, there's a pitcher named Tyler, T-Y-L-E-R. If you read that column, and you don't have to be too much between the lines, what he is strongly implying in that column was that Tyler threw the game. Because Tyler is pitching, refuses to take the recommendations of his catcher. His catcher has to go out to the mound again and again. He's not taking the signals. His manager has told Tyler not to pitch to Ruth. At this point, the Cubs are ahead. In the sixth inning, Tyler gets up, pitches to Ruth. He grooves the first one right down, right in his wheelhouse. Ruth stands back. He's perplexed. Why would anyone get this? He's got a man on base. Why would anyone do this? Second pitch comes in. Ruth he can't believe it. He knows he's going to be walked, or they're going to nibble the edges of the strike zone. Second pitch, right down the middle of the plate. Ruth is incredulous. Takes a cold strike two. Third ball, and then the catcher is going crazy. Third ball comes down straight down into the strike zone. Right down the middle of the plate. Ruth tags it for a triple. The Red Sox win the game. There is evidence in his columns that something is radically wrong with his team. That the Cubs are undisciplined, and there is something radically wrong. When he is appointed, he's the first time in history that an owner, Wrigley, comes and gets Veeck out of the press corps. Pulls him out of the press corps. He's not one of the old guys. He doesn't know all the old players. He's a writer. He wears a nice shirt and he goes around the country. He's syndicated all over the country. Very successful writer. He appears in papers, not just in Chicago, all over the country. Why does Wrigley pick him? My suggestion, because of what happens later, is Veeck will then become the man that blows the whistles. He finds out one of his players has been compromised. He gets a call from Montreal, from a gambler, saying, the game today is fixed. Veeck pulls the pitcher, who's never plays again, pulls the pitcher, gets several other calls that the game is fixed, that particular game. Veeck then goes to, demands a grant. He hires Pinkertons to find out what's going on, who's tampering with the Cubs. He hires the Pinkertons, and he goes and demands a grand jury based on the evidence he comes up with. The grand jury immediately goes to the 1919 Black Sox. But they've determined that there is adverse influence going on. Gamblers are getting to the players. What I suggest in the book, I cannot nail this down entirely, but this strongly suggests that what Wrigley wanted desperately was to clean up baseball. And he knew the one guy, especially Veeck's allies, Hugh Fullerton and Lardner and the other writers, who knew what were going on. They all knew that baseball had gone into a slippery slope of gamblers and players being fixed. And I believe that the major contribution of William Veeck may have been that he was the motive force in cleaning up baseball. That he bans the gamblers from the parks. That he has the guts to hire the Pinkertons to prove that there's corruption on his own team. That he, in fact, became, when all the facts are revealed, and some of them just revealed recently, but when all the facts are revealed, I think it will become clear that he may have been the greatest influence on cleaning up the game and presenting us with a game that was clean and free of gamblers actually influencing the outcome of the game. So I think, to me, the other stuff is really interesting and really important, radio, et cetera, et cetera. But somebody would have come up with it. I think it took a Veeck to come in there and just say, this is what I'm going to do. And Bill, again, was very, very anti-gambling. He was in Cleveland. There were gamblers hanging around the ballpark. They were playing on the first baseline. And he said, you guys can come to the ballpark. No gambling in this ballpark. He cleaned it. You don't want the guys in here, the big-time gamblers in here at my ballpark. You can come and watch the game, but no gambling.